Spirit Island. If you've been on the Discord, you can see that when it comes to strategy, there is two forums, and one of them is basic strategy, and the other one is complex strategy, getting the most out of cards and dealing with very high level adversaries. And there's a lot of videos about the latter, but there's not a lot of videos that show how to get started, how to learn the basic game. So I'm just trying to fill that hole a little bit. Um, so I'm just going to talk about some things about how I approach this game in this video, rather than going through any particular spirit. Although we will be looking at one of my spirits that I like to use, um, and that's the first thing is that you're going to have to learn this game. A lot of games these days on the market, you can do pretty well on your first go through because they're fairly simple and they're designed to give you a lot of inroads. One of the reasons we like um, Spirit Island is it's really deep, and you have to spend a long time learning how to play it and how the antagonists work. And just when you think you're learning something, you're going to have to learn something new. But it's important to start easy. Don't throw yourself into the game. Like when you're learning, I would absolutely not play with an adversary, and absolutely not, because I'm still trying to learn the tempo and the rules and get these things internalized into my head. And should you start to experiment by changing that with scenarios and things? And again, because I'm learning and I'm trying to internalize all these things, it's really key for me that I don't change it up a bit. But that's what those things are for. If you're someone who learns fast and gets these things under their skin and go, right, I understand exactly how these things work and move, and I can always cut them off, then you can go, right, well, I'm going to change it. I'm going to have a scenario now where the enemy moves faster or slower or comes in waves or whatever. But you should internalize the system first. So this is a setup on board F. Our first explore was the mountains, and every time we come to our first turn, we should have a think about we're going to approach this game. So we have to look at the board a little bit and see which things might be adjacent to each other. We have to look at what spirit we're playing as well, and think about what that spirit is good at and what that spirit is bad at and what that spirit is teaching us. Because what I think I also like about this game is that every twist and turn is actually an opportunity to explore some part of the system. So I really like Sharp Fangs, and one of the reasons I really like Sharp Fangs is I like doing damage. That's something I enjoy playing the game. I don't like playing defensive spirits that much, and I don't like fear spirits. I hate playing Bringers of Dreams and Nightmares because I want to crush these people. I want to destroy them. That's just something that how I play. I tend to play high aggressive. I used to play a little red and green decks in Magic, so I just like to do damage. But what else can Sharp Fangs teach us? Now, there is information on the back, but it's quite simplistic, and it's only going to get you started, right? It is true that Beasts is fast out of the gate, can have some trouble with things later in the game. It is true that Raging Hunt is in critical innate ability. It's true that mobility is really important. And some of these things can give you insight, but you also have to really take time to learn exactly what your spirit is doing and what is it strong at and what is it bad at, what is its weaknesses and what it is teaching you. And to do that, you often have to play a spirit over and over and over again. First, to just get a handle on how to play it, and then to see what its strengths and weaknesses are. So the key with Sharp Fangs is, of course, the beast tokens, but particularly is the ability to move your presence around by moving beasts. This power, Raging Hunt, allows you to gather beasts and then push them. You can only push up to 2, so you can't move things incredibly around, but you can gather your beasts slowly in one place and do some extra damage with them, and that's a really useful power. If you're very lucky in the late game, you'll be able to do a bit more fear and a bit more damage, with Frenzied Assault, but that comes way later. You're mostly going to be focusing on Raging Hunt and its power, which combines with Ally of the Beast and Call Forth Predators. You can move your presence with beasts, and you can turn your presence into beasts. Both of these give you a great deal of flexibility, and you can play the game in a very different way that some other more constrained characters can't. You have to, you have the ability to move your presence around to wherever it's needed. That helps you think ahead and understand how things work. And you've got cards that work well with that. Prey on the Builders, for example, has range 0. So you have to be in the space that you want it to work. You've also got, oops, let's get that out of the way. You've also got, that's not the one I want. These two, of course, only work range 1 out of a jungle where you have presence. And again, Terrifying Chase also range 0. The thing I mistake is I often forget about these range 0s when I'm playing this game. Other spirits, your base spirits may have longer ranges, and you will forget that. So what are we learning from Sharp Fang? We're learning about making sure our ranges are correct. If you play Sharp Fangs and you forget about range, you're not going to have a good time. Everything is 0 or 1, and everything has to come back to these jungles, which means this land over here, if I move away from it, I'm in trouble because I can't get back there. I can only put presence in jungles or where there are beasts. So I have to think about that. I have to think about where my beasts are and where I place things. It's easy to sort of get into the idea that I'll just keep moving my beasts around, but I might forget. So it also helps you then focus on learning how important it can be when you're doing your growth step to choose exactly where you go. So if you find yourself all the time in these games thinking, hang on, I got that wrong. That's too far away. I need a sacred site, or I need to be near jungle. You keep missing ranges, or you put your presence down at the start of a turn, and then halfway through the turn you go, oh no, wait, I put that in the wrong place. Play some beasts, because beasts will get you better at that. It will teach you to think ahead all the way through the turn and into the next turn, because Gather the Beasts, Ranging Hunt and Call Forth Predators, this all happens in the fast stage, but what it's actually doing is setting you up for the growth stage of the next turn. So it's thinking a long term ahead, because you can only put presence down where there's jungle or wetlands. So you have to think in the fast step of turn 1, where am I going to need presence in the next turn? So up here, for example, in our first turn, we got Explore in the Mountains. So this guy is going to build a town. This guy's going to build a town. Next turn, I'm going to want to be in one of these places, probably, if I'm going to be able to play. I need to be there already to play Prey on the Builders if I want to stop a build. And if next turn I want to play something that's going to do some damage, and I've got to have presence there as well, because again, Ranging Hunt is a range of 1 from your presence. So if I want to get into there, I've got to think ahead. Right now, I may want to put that in there, but I also might want to put another beast in there, and so on. And I have to think ahead through that next turn. So everything that you're learning how to think ahead about where presence should go, and so on. If you're playing another spirit with long range, you're not going to learn that so much. And of course, most spirits don't move their presence at all. So that's something that you can do here, is if you do stuff up, you have the ability to move. But it does make the game very unique. And that's also the strength of Sharp Fangs, is that you can move, and most other spirits can't. And so, if you're playing with someone like Ocean, for example, or you're playing with someone like Lure, or or Keeper of the Forbidden Wilds, things that have a lot of trouble moving around, then you are become their best friends. And that's one of the great things about this game is because every spirit has really strong handicaps. Uh, they really want to have friends. You really can't play alone. Sometimes, like you might be able to, you can win solo, of course, in this game. But the bigger the island, the more you need friends. And you're just so grateful if you go, oh, I don't have any range, but I'm playing with you know with shadows. If we're playing with shadows, for example, shadows can do a lot of range and maybe come and help us, and we can then come and help where shadow is having trouble, um, stopping builds and things like that. Or you're playing with river who can move things around but can't really do any damage on its own, and then you're like, well, I'm coming your way. You're playing with ocean who can't get to the interior. You're playing with lure who can't get to the exterior. Well, you are the mobile tank. You are the presence that moves across the board and does a lot of damage on its way. And yeah, so also a great way to learn early game because you tend to win pretty early if you're doing things well with beasts. So that's just an example of the kind of things that I think about when I'm looking at a spirit. What are they good at? What are they bad at? What am I going to learn by playing this? What are they really strong at? As I say, it's more than just what they're good at. It's like how do they win, and how do they have something that other spirits don't? What makes them unique? And Beast is all about this mobility. But as part of that, you have to always be learning about where you're going to go. And yeah, whereas if you play someone with a nice long range, you don't have to learn that at all, and you might have to learn something else. So we're going to be looking at other spirits as we go, and yeah, we'll be talking about how to learn these things and some other general things going forward.